चलें जी बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम. It is now 11 o'clock. Let us start the class. So this is our course Automotive Electronics EE202, and today we will start with the fourth lecture. We are now covering chapter number 9. This title is Wiring Schematics and Symbols. So in this slide, we have the wiring schematics and symbols. So let us start with the most popular schematics. Schematics are symbols that are used within a circuit that display various components of the circuit. So first of all, we have a positive terminal represented by the positive sign, and the negative terminal represented by the negative sign. Then we have the symbolic symbol of the battery. It is also the schematic symbol of the battery also. Then there is the ground. And here we see two symbols for the ground. And what is the definition of a ground? Ground is the electrical point in a circuit whose potential, whose voltage potential is 0 volts. This is the definition of the ground. That point in a circuit whose electric potential is 0 volt, it is called the ground. Then we have the symbol of the fuse. The fuse is a component which is used to protect our circuit against large current. Then there is circuit breaker. A circuit breaker is a device that can be opened or closed according to the circuit requirement. सर्किट ब्रेकर को जब आप क्लोज कर देंगे, it will start to conduct current. When we open the circuit breaker, the circuit will be open and no current will pass through the circuit breaker. Then we have the resistor. Resistor is the opposition faced by the electric current, and it is represented as shown in the diagram, and the unit of resistor is ohms. Now, resistor has subsets. First subset is called the variable resistor. The variable resistor is a resistor whose resistance value can be changed. A variable resistor can have two terminals as shown in this diagram, or a variable resistor can also have three terminals as shown in the next diagram. So we have a resistance, variable resistance, and then a potentiometer. A potentiometer is also a variable resistance with three terminals. Then comes the bulb. The bulb is a load. The bulb is a load that converts electric energy into light energy. The purpose of using a bulb is to get light. Then there is dual filament bulb. A dual filament bulb is a bulb in one casing which has two filaments. and we can increase or decrease the light intensity by using one filament or two filaments. Dual filament bulb. It is a bulb which has two filaments, and we use a two filament bulb to get more light. Then there are connectors, female terminal connectors, male terminal connectors, female terminal connectors, and simple connectors. So connectors are copper wires that connect circuits to the source, or they connect the source to the fuses, and so on. Then there is a splice. Splice is the connection of two wires. Splice is the connection of two wires or even more than two wires. And this splice is also called a node. It is a place where the current can be distributed into various branches. Splice is the connection of two or more wires. Then we have wire not electrically connected. So how to represent wire which is not electrically connected? We have a straight line followed by a half circle, and through this half circle there is another line. So this symbol shows the crossing of two wires such that the two wires are not in electrical contact. Then after this is the coil winding. The coil winding is a inductor through which current passes, and when current passes, magnetic field is produced. Now coil can be wound in air, or it can be wound on lamination or steel. In case the coil is wounded on air, then we have the simple coil winding as shown in the first diagram, and then in the second diagram, these two parallel lines, they represents the iron core steel lamination sheet. So coil winding and coil winding with steel laminations. Right. इसके बाद after this, there is the symbolic representation of a diode. Symbolic representation of a diode. A diode is a semiconductor device which will allow current to pass only in one direction. And what is the direction? As seen in the symbolic representation, the direction of the arrow in the diode symbol represents the direction of current that can be passed through this diode. So this diode has current which will only pass in one direction, and this current passes from the anode terminal to the cathode terminal. Right, after this we have the Zener diode. The Zener diode is a special diode which will, no doubt, it will allow current to flow in one direction, but the Zener diode will allow current to flow in opposite direction when the voltage across the diode, across the Zener diode has broken down. So when we reverse bias the Zener diode, a voltage will come when the Zener diode will experience breakdown, and at that time current can flow in the opposite direction. However, this is the theory of Zener diode.
सर एक क्वेश्चन है।
In this diagram, we see the symbolic representation of Zener diode. हाँ जी पूछें।
सर ये जो ब्रेकडाउन फिनोमेना है ये तो आर्म डायोड के साथ भी नहीं होता?
आर्म डायोड के साथ होता है, लेकिन एट वेरी लार्ज वोल्टेजेस, very large voltages. लेकिन जीनर डायोड को आप डोप ऐसा करते हैं कि इसका ब्रेकडाउन वोल्टेज थोड़े वोल्टेज में अकर हो जाए, इसको कंट्रोल्ड रखते हैं क्योंकि इसका एप्लीकेशन ही यही है कि इसको आपने ब्रेकडाउन के वक्त इस्तेमाल करना है।
ओके
लेकिन
सर।
नॉर्मल डायोड के ब्रेकडाउन वोल्टेज बहुत ज़्यादा रखे जाते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल 500 वोल्ट्स, फॉर एग्जांपल 1000 वोल्ट्स। लेकिन जीनर डायोड के ब्रेकडाउन वोल्टेज कंट्रोल रखे जाते हैं, एज पर रिक्वायर्ड रखे जाते हैं।
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू।
Okay, now we have our third symbol which represents light emitting diode. This is a very popular diode. It is also called the LED, light emitting diode, and this is a diode which emits light once current passes through the diode itself. So when we have a current passing through the diode, this diode will start emitting light, and it is found in many applications as light indicators or as a source of light. Now in the fourth diagram we see the symbolic and schematic representation of capacitor. We see the symbolic representation of capacitor. In fact, there are two capacitor symbols shown because there are two most popular capacitor. One is the simple or ceramic capacitor, and or which is also called non-electrolyte, and then there is the electrolyte capacitor. So the capacitor which uses two straight lines, it is the non-electrolyte capacitor, and the capacitor with a curve in the line. This is the electrolyte capacitor. The electrolyte capacitors normally they have larger capacity as compared to non-electrolyte capacitors. Capacitors are always measured in farads. Farad is the unit of measurement of capacitor. So electrolyte capacitor has larger farad capacity as compared to non-electrolyte capacitor. But non-electrolyte capacitor and electrolyte capacitors, they are found in vast majority and are used at various locations in a circuit.
सर
Then
इसका
comes
नाम क्या है, ये जो
our,
कर्व वाला कैपेसिटर है?
हाँ जी,
सर इसका नाम क्या है कर्व वाले कैपेसिटर का?
electrolyte capacitor,
इलेक्ट्रोलाइट, ठीक है सर।
electrolyte capacitor. Then comes the fifth symbol. This is the motor. A motor is used at many locations within our automotive electronic application, and the motor normally that are used will be DC motor. This DC motor has two terminals connected to the rotor. So the symbol that we see shows the two terminals and the rotor. The round surface is the rotor. So a motor will be a device which converts electrical energy to mechanical rotation. Then comes the sixth symbol, that is the case grounded. Case grounded is the casing. It is the cover of our electronic circuit. And if it is connected to the body, then it is called the case grounded. That is, this cover is connected to 0 volts. Then the seventh symbol is the solid box. It is simple a representation of all components packed together. Also comes the dash solid box. Dash line represents part of the component. Now the ninth symbol represents the relay. The relay is a electromechanical device which opens or closes according to the current in the coil. ये जो रिले है ये आप लोगों ने इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स के कोर्स में कर लिया था ये
No, sir.
नो
नो
सर।
सर नहीं किया था.
और ये मोटर कर लिया था आपने
नो सर.
No, sir.
और डायोड्स
वो कर
यस
लिया
सर,
सर.
डायोड्स के थे.
जी सर. वो हो गया था.
तो ये मोटर नहीं किया
नो सर,
नहीं
मोटर
सर.
नहीं किया था.
और ये वेरिएबल रेजिस्टेंस या सिंपल रेजिस्टेंस
रेजिस्टेंस की थी सर, वेरिएबल रेजिस्टेंस नहीं की.
चलिए ठीक है सो ये जो नाइन्थ सिंबल है और टेंथ सिंबल है it is the same relay it is the same relay one time it is open circuit and second time it is short circuit. Relay is always controlled by the help of the coil. The coil symbol that we see in the relay controls the arrow symbol or the connector symbol. So if there is current, we will see in a lecture in a later slide how relays work. That when we allow current to pass in the coil, magnetic field will be produced and it will close the connector. And when we stop this current, the magnetic field will be stopped and the connector will be open circuit. So these two symbols they represent the same device.
सर
Now
इसका फायदा क्या होता है सर? यानी जब मर्जी हम चाहें तो करंट के थ्रू सर्किट को ओपन क्लोज कर दें.
so the benefit is that we can control the on off procedure of our electrical loads through electronic signal. आप एक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक सिग्नल से दूसरे इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कंपोनेंट्स के ऑन होने या ऑफ होने को कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं. दिस इज द बिगेस्ट एडवांटेज ऑफ रिलेज and relays are found in our automotive applications.
सर ये जो नॉर्मली ओपन वाला रिले है ये जब करंट नहीं पास करेगा तो ये ओपन रहेगा और करंट पास करेगा तो क्लोज हो जाएगा, ऐसे ही है?
ये हर वक्त ऐसा केस नहीं होता, इसका उलट भी हो सकता है. रिलेज अब जो डिज़ाइन होती हैं वो कोई एक स्पेसिफिक ऑर्डर पे डिज़ाइन नहीं होती. हो सकता है कि जब आप करंट दें तो फिर वो नॉर्मली क्लोज हो जाएं, या हो सकता है कि जब आप करंट दें तो नॉर्मली ओपन हो जाएं और जब करंट ना दें तो फिर नॉर्मली शॉर्ट रहें या नॉर्मली क्लोज रहें. तो वो दोनों दोनों क्या कहना चाहिए, दोनों पॉसिबिलिटीज मुमकिन हो जाती हैं,
ओके सर.
दोनों तैयार की जा सकती हैं. तो इसको स्पेसिफिकली डिफाइन नहीं हम कर सकते इस टाइम पे.
ओके सर.
राइट. इसके बाद जो दो सिंबल्स हैं दे आर कंसर्न्ड विद द थ्री फेज इलेक्ट्रिक नेटवर्क. थ्री फेज नेटवर्क्स आपने किए थे इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कोर्स में?
सर जो रेजिस्टेंस के थे डेल्टा और वाई वो हमने किए थे, जो इंडक्टर थे वो हम बस गो थ्रू किया था चैप्टर के अंदर, क्योंकि वो हमारा जो सिलेबस था ना उसके अंदर सिर्फ एमसीक्यूज की फॉर्म में आने थे।
रेजिस्टर्स किए थे सर, इंडक्टर्स नहीं किए थे।
So ठीक है, so we can connect three phase loads in two manners. One is called the delta winding, which is seen as in the shape of a triangle. So here we see three inductors that are connected in a delta winding. We can use capacitors instead of the inductors, or we can use resistors instead of the inductors also. Now the other possibility of using three-phase load is shown in the Y winding, which looks like a the English alphabet Y. And in this diagram, three inductors are connected in Y winding. We can always use three resistors or three capacitors in the Y winding configuration. So delta winding and Y winding are parts of a three-phase electric network. ठीक है? Now let us look at a very normal wiring diagram found within our automotive electronic application, and it is almost the same electric circuit diagram that we will find in our automotive electronic laboratory equipment. जो लेबोरेटरी इक्विपमेंट है उनका भी सर्किट डायग्राम इससे मिलता जुलता है. So what we see is, first of all, we see a box which has written hot at all times. So this means that this terminal is always connected to positive 12 volt of the battery. 12 volt of the battery is connected over here, or this is the location of 12 volt battery. And then what we see is, इसके बाद क्या component आ रहा है?
फ्यूज सर.
There is a fuse. और ये फ्यूज कितने कैपेसिटी का है?
सर इसकी रेटिंग 15
15
एम्पेयर.
amps.
So the rating of the fuse is only 15 ampere. So first of all, we have the battery, and then we have a fuse, and then there are various loads connected to the output of the fuse. For example, we have under hood light, then we have right inside lighted mirror, then left inside lighted mirror, right side courtesy light and left side courtesy light, and then the dome light. So these are all, or these are some of the lighting loads. और ये जो lighting loads हैं, they are all bulbs.
सर कोटेसी लाइट्स क्या होता है?
हाँ जी, क्या कह रहे थे?
सर ये कोटेसी लाइट्स क्या होती हैं?
अब्दुलरहमान, वो गाड़ी के अंदर जो लाइट्स नहीं होती, डोर लाइट्स होती हैं, उनको कहते हैं।
अच्छा ठीक है।